settings are kind of screwy because I had to turn off NVIDIA Broadcast, which is how all my camera settings, all my lighting is done. So we'll just go with it. All right. Where were we? So wearing reading glasses now. It's part of getting old. It's just the reality of the situation, right? I have perfect 20/20 vision. Once you get about a foot and a half away from my face, but everything up close, not so great. So, spiky hair VTH is my sleep paralysis demon. So let's talk about spiky hair VTH a little bit. So, there's a reason why the spiky hair, right? So I have some ridiculous, weird things that happen with my hair. So I have a cowlick in the front. I've got a swirl and a cowlick in the back. My hair, like the part goes this way, but then the back swirls the other way. So basically, I have two options with my hair. I either grow it really, really long and then like stick it back and everything, which I've done. And you guys have seen me, like my first appearance on the History Channel was with the long hair. Or I have to keep it really short and make it spiky. There's really nothing else I can do with my hair. Unless I hire like a really expensive person who can do something else with it. And I just don't have that kind of money. So, so that's what's up. So, it's been a long time since we streamed. I have been on 2 group trips since we streamed, been to Jordan, and then just got back from England. I also finished the book. One of the reasons you haven't heard a lot from me lately in streams is because I have basically been 24/7 getting the book done. And that includes getting back from England a couple of days ago because the book, Trumbull County Boys, the release date was April 6th. March 27th, I ordered my author's copies, which the author's copies are, Mike, you're right. We also did the Shiloh tour. So author's copies, basically, it's when you order copies for yourself that you can do with what you want. And in that case, I only pay the printing cost. I don't pay the retail price of the book. So all of the books that we did as pre-sales, so if you ordered a pre-sale autographed copy, those were author's copies. And there ended up being, between the folks on the Shiloh tour who were getting a book as part of that and all the pre-sale copies, about 400 books. And so I ordered those March 27th. They didn't come till April 24th, by which time I was in England and then had to wait until I got back. But we printed the labels, we got everything ready so that all I have to do is sign them and get them in the mail. So finally finished that process today. All the books are packed and ready and on their way. So y'all should have those, I would guess, no later than Monday if you did pre-order one. Unfortunately, the people who ordered them just on Amazon got them a whole lot faster because Amazon will send you a book at full price in 2 days. But if you order an author's copy, they make you wait a month for it, apparently. So I did order some more author's copies today, and it said they're going to come Friday, but we'll see, because every time they told me before they would come on a certain date, they ended up taking several days more than that. So now the issue is 1 month, 400 books doesn't seem unreasonable turnaround, but they can do it in 2 days. They just choose not to because they're not making any money on it. If I ordered 400 books at retail price, I'd have them in 2 days. So let's get to some of the questions. We've already got 13 in the super chats, and I also starred some as well that I saw before we started today. So that's basically, this is just going to be a Q&A. If you want to ask me in particular about the book, we can do that, about my plans for the next book, about what's going on behind the scenes with the book, and speaking engagements and things like that. If you want to ask me about Jordan, you want to ask me about Hadrian's Wall, you want to ask me about Shiloh, you want to ask me about the upcoming tours. We have 1 spot left on our August Scotland tour, just one. The July Scotland tour has been sold out for a while, and then we have the Western Front tour in October, and that we can take 44 people. And as of Now I think there are 14 bookings. So plenty of space still left in that one. So anyway, let's get to some of these. So All Saints Kill, thank you for that. My ancestor Benjamin Satterwhite was in Company B, 9th Virginia Cavalry, the Caroline Light Dragoons. I'm assuming from Caroline County. I'd love to learn more about his unit if you have any info. I don't personally, I'm not familiar with that unit, but I can point you in the right direction. For example, if you get a membership to fold3.com, all of the Confederate combined military service records, the CMSRs, which is where they have things like their enlistment information, their height, their physical description, where and when they enlisted, their birthplace in many cases. It'll say any promotions they had. It'll talk about whether they were AWOL, things like that. Some Confederate units have better records than others, but all of the Confederate units have their CMSRs available on fold3.com. Unfortunately for me, in writing the book on the 20th Ohio, Ohio is one of 3 Union states for whom we don't have the CMSRs available online. You have to go to the National Archives to access them. So in the Confederate case, that's not an issue. When will you be doing another Bible-themed lesson? Actually, I recorded one in England at various spots along Hadrian's Wall. We'll probably go live tomorrow on VTH Extra. Call this your John Cena streams. Yeah, so if you guys are just joining, we were having some trouble with the camera before we got started, and people could hear me, but they couldn't see me. So let's see where we at. Check your hardware acceleration. Yeah, I thought of that as an issue, but hardware acceleration has always been turned on. It was never an issue before, but it turned out it was what I suspected. It was something to do with my virtual camera, because I use a virtual camera when I'm recording my reactions, because it blurs the background and has the lighting set up just the way I want it. The Ghost of Woodrow Wilson trying to shut down the stream, VTH. You'll never win, Wilson. So, hey, for those who don't already know, Woodrow Wilson's mother was born in Carlisle, UK. And that was where we started our tour, our hiking tour of Hadrian's Wall. And there was a Weatherspoons right across the street from our hotel. And I didn't know this when I booked the hotel for the tour. And it's called the Woodrow Wilson Weatherspoons. And we drank there we ate and drank there the first night. And then I think we just went for drinks one other night. But I'm going to show you one of the pictures from that. Me posing with the menu. Hopefully I can do this without it looking too blurry. Maybe not. Let's see if I can get the camera to refocus. It doesn't want to. Anyway, that's me with the menu that has Woodrow Wilson's face really, really big on it. So, but the prices were really good, so I guess I can't complain too much. Hello from Thatcham, England. Hello. I had a wonderful week in your amazing, beautiful country. Can't wait to go back. In these divisive times, do you think another constitutional amendment will ever be passed? Not anytime soon, unless it's something that would have strong bipartisan support. I'd like to think something like term limits, but I don't know that you'd get 2/3 of Congress to limit their own terms. So right now, I can't really think of any, unfortunately. What's one historic topic that you never studied before that you want to learn more about at the current moment? Great question. That I've never studied. Because there's a lot of things I've studied a little bit here and there. So maybe I should broaden it to say something I've never really studied with any intent or in any depth. In which case I would probably say what I've said many times recently, which is I wish I knew more Eastern Asian history, especially Southeast Asia. I know very, very little about what we used to call French Indochina and that, Southeast Asia. So Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, that part of the world. I don't know very much at all about their history. And that's an area I'd like to know more about and eventually visit at some point. Cursed Thinker 77. Does that mean you were born in 77? Because if so, that's a fantastic year to be born. But thank you for that. Does this recent assassination attempt put Trump in the history books as the president with the most assassination attempts? I don't know if it's the most. And this one, I mean, because we've had presidents that have had multiple attempts that never amounted to much. Kind of like this one. I mean, we only had one that really, I think, was serious enough to where the president, there was a good chance that he could actually be killed. And that was the one that happened in Butler, Pennsylvania. That was very, very, very close to being an awful situation. And it was an awful situation for the family of the man who was killed. But this one, I don't know that it ever, I mean, I think we've had many, many situations where stuff like what happened this time have happened. It's just we're more heightened sensitivity to it. We're in a 24-hour news cycle now. So I don't think we're really in uncharted territory in that way quite yet. Which writer do you prefer, Plutarch or Suetonius? Suetonius for me. He's somebody I know that that Tom Holland refers to regularly in his books on the Roman Empire, and I'm a huge Tom Holland fan, so I like him a lot. Oh yeah, so Cy Darman, thank you for that. What did you think of Bayern Munich and PSG semifinal first leg? That was nuts. It was nuts. And I know Mike's in the chat here, and he's a Bayern Munich fan, so I know he's not crazy about how that went, but you know, it's anybody's to win or lose in the second leg. So it'll be interesting to see how that all goes down. Kind of pulling for either Bayern Munich or Arsenal to win the Champions League, I think, this year. When will I visit the Netherlands again? Rockstar Boys. I was actually just in the Netherlands a couple of days ago. My connecting flight was in Amsterdam coming home from I flew from Edinburgh to Amsterdam to Detroit to Cleveland. So but I do need to get back there. I have friends there. So at some point, correction, bros, I am a preacher. I still preach on Sunday mornings. And the church that I preach in is actually, we are, the best way to describe it would be non-denominational, independent Christian churches and churches of Christ. Many of our churches actually used to be part of the Disciples of Christ, but left that denomination decades ago. It's not the denomination that's known as Church of Christ, even though my church is called Church of Christ. There's a denomination called Church of Christ. It gets really confusing. That does like no instrumental music. We're not that. We are part of a pretty large group of churches. Actually, if you take all of the independent Christian churches and churches of Christ, I think we are like in the top 10 or 15 denominations in the country if we were a denomination, but we don't have any structure above the local church. So there's not really denomination, but we have church camps that we share as churches. We have publications. We have universities like Kentucky Christian University and a bunch of other ones. It was really born out of what is known as the Restoration Movement, which was late 1700s, early 1800s. It was a movement that said, you know what, there are all these denominations, and this was never what Christ intended. So we're going back to what the first century church was. Now, it's not perfect, and I'm not claiming that we are, but it's the idea that that all of this man-made stuff that we have built up around Christianity is not what was intended, and we're trying to simplify and get back to what really matters and nothing more. So that's kind of where it is, and that's what we are. All right. When will my book be available for purchase? It has been for quite a while. You can get it on Amazon right now. You can, and lots of people already have the book. Question: the Attaché Sherman reaction video. You mentioned making a video at Sherman's grave, but I couldn't find the video. Yeah, so I did a video at that cemetery in St. Louis years and years and years ago. It was actually on my gaming channel back when the gaming channel also had my vlogs, before I started vlogging through history, and I don't believe it's live anymore. It's not great quality. So if you ask any YouTuber, once they have been making content for a couple of years on YouTube, anything more than like a year ago, we cringe when we watch it because hopefully we're learning along the way. So I really, really, really cringe when I watch some of those old videos. So that's why it's not up anymore. I was reading lately about how Mark Twain could not stand Theodore Roosevelt. Well, I mean, a lot of people couldn't stand Mark Twain. So, yeah, I wouldn't listen. This is, and I'm not necessarily saying this is what you were getting at with this, but in general, it's really good advice to not form your opinion on someone else based on what somebody else says about them. Uh, Give you a great example. I had an example in a church that I was in where I started at the church and somebody came, somebody in leadership at that church, like right when I started, uh, immediately started bending my ear about someone who no longer attended the church and telling me how terrible they were and how divisive they were and how that person had done a lot of damage to the church and that they were glad they weren't there anymore. And if I had listened to all of that, I would have formed an opinion of that person I hadn't met that was very negative, but I didn't. And eventually that person returned to the church, that person I had heard so much about. Ended up being one of my absolute favorite people in the church and just I thought was wonderful and bore no resemblance to what had been described to me. So, yeah, I mean, I'm sure there was a reason Mark Twain couldn't stand Theodore Roosevelt, but I don't put too much stock in other people's opinions of someone that I've never personally met. So, I can answer this easy. A true historian would know how many licks it takes to get to the Tootsie Roll center of a Tootsie Pop. That's easy. It's 3. A 1, a 2, a 3, a 3. If you've seen the commercials, you know, right? Um, yeah, JD got some heavy damage yesterday. I've been seeing the pictures, including of his windshield. Not great. Thankfully, it reminds me why I'm glad I have a garage I can park in. Most memorable reaction moment that you have always remembered. Reaction moment. Oh gosh. Yes, there absolutely is. So it was when I was doing a reaction to Sabaton's the music video made by Yarn Hub. Speaking of fun news, I just got about something connected to Yarn Hub. I was reacting to Sabaton's video on Sabaton's music video of No Bullets Fly that was animated by Yarn Hub, and they did like a story with it. And in the middle of that reaction, I saw a triangle K on the tail of the B-17 that they were depicting in the animation. And I recognized it because I knew that Triangle K was the 379th Bomb Group because my then grandfather-in-law was a ball turret gunner in the 379th. And so I stopped, I looked it up, found out that indeed Charlie Brown and Franz Stigler, that famous story of the German not shooting down the crippled bomber, that was indeed a bomber from the 379th Bomb Group out of Kimbolton, England, which was my grandfather-in-law's bomb group. So it was just crazy to find out that this story happened in his group and that that they actually knew each other, my grandfather-in-law, because they had brought Franz Stigler into their reunions, which my grandfather-in-law always attended. So it was crazy. Unfortunately, no horrible histories. There's something about that particular series of videos that if you try to even use a tiny clip of it, it gets instantly blocked by YouTube. So you can't react to horrible histories for some reason. Unfortunately. Okay. Wait, let's go back here. Thoughts on the recent developments in Mali? I'm actually not aware of the recent developments in Mali. Is something going on in Mali? I don't watch a lot of news, unfortunately. I catch up on things I read sometimes, but I've been hiking Hadrian's Wall for the last week. So I wasn't really seeing much in the way of news, which was glorious to be out in nature and not focused on all that stuff for a few days. You talked a lot about the good and bad presidents. Are there any that I think are plain average? I mean, yeah, a lot of them are plain average. Benjamin Harrison was average. Millard Fillmore was average. I think William Howard Taft was pretty average. I think Grover Cleveland was pretty average. I mean, a lot of them were right kind of there in the middle. If you look at my videos where I ranked the presidents, there's a lot that are right there in that C that are just kind of like, nah, all right, they did all right. I mean, they didn't, do anything too bad or anything too great. They're just kind of there. I mean, by definition, average has got to include a lot of folks in the middle, right? Yeah, unfortunately, sorry, I didn't turn off the ability for people to comment too often. Usually I put a slow on the comment so people can't do it more than every 30 seconds or a minute. So I'll put that person in timeout who keeps saying the same thing over and over again. Hey, great question, Weston Bridges. Have to ask if a 23rd Ohio Infantry Regiment book might be coming soon. You say, yeah. So I have decided that my niche for writing is going to be this, because I absolutely loved writing Trumbull County Boys. I loved getting to know those men on a deeper than just kind of tactical level, and getting to know their stories before and after the war and during the war. So my next books are definitely going to be in that same vein. They're going to be company level histories. And I've got like 4 different companies that I'm currently doing research into before I make my final decision about which one it's going to be. And Company E of the 23rd Ohio is one of them. Company E of the 23rd Ohio, I can look out my window and see where they were sworn in. It was a building right down the street from me. They were from here where I live. They were called the Poland Guards, and William McKinley started out as a private in Company E. So it'd be really easy for me to do that one. A lot of the guys are buried within walking distance of my house. But I also have thought about maybe switching it up and maybe doing like Wisconsin, maybe a 6th Wisconsin company in the Iron Brigade. I've looked at a couple of West Virginia units for possibilities, including the 7th West Virginia, but I'm still thinking about it. All right, we've got 59 super chats, so I've got to get caught up on these. Besides Christopher Nolan's Odyssey, is there any good historical movie or TV show coming out this year that might be a good watch in your opinion? Let me think about what's coming out. I'm not aware of too much that's historical that's coming out that hasn't already. So if somebody can maybe comment in the comment section about some of the ones that are upcoming, and then maybe that'll refresh my memory a little bit on that. Yeah, Young Washington. I know my friend Dr. Jared Frederick was not real thrilled of what he saw in the trailer for that. That I'm intrigued. It's got some big name actors in it. It's a story we haven't really told in a decent way yet. I mean, we've had some TV miniseries and stuff like that. Pressure, Eldon, yeah, that's a good one. I don't know how I feel about Pressure yet, because we basically have already had that movie. We had it with Tom Selleck playing Ike, and I thought it was fantastic. It was the same story. It was the build up to D-Day and the stuff that was going on. And I thought Tom Selleck was a phenomenal Ike, and I know that Susan Eisenhower, Ike's granddaughter, said that their family really liked Tom Selleck as Ike. So I felt like that story was already told, But Young Washington will be an interesting one. Law Slugger, absolutely not. Stonewall Jackson was not the savior of the South, right? I mean, there was nothing that he brought to the table that changes the outcome of the Civil War. It doesn't change the math. It doesn't change the logistics. And honestly, Stonewall Jackson was not the brilliant, flawless leader that some people seem to think he was. He just happened to die after one of his great moments. If he had died after the 7 Days campaign, we'd remember him as pretty mediocre. So, or after Fredericksburg, for that matter. King and Conqueror, that already came out. That was decent. I enjoyed it. Again, great story we haven't heard a lot of. I don't know how historically accurate it was, but all right. Julian, thank you for that. You're from Sandusky, and also preferred ordered. I'm guessing you said ordered your signed copy of the book. I recently found out about the Battle of Fallen Timbers. Yeah. So Fallen Timbers, are you talking about, so, because there's actually two. I'm assuming you're talking about the one that's close to you, which would be in 1794. Uh, I know that my friend JD, the History Underground, did a video there. I also know that he had some issues with making that video in terms of like the people there not being real thrilled or supportive of him making a video. Because there's also Fallen Timbers that was fought on April 8th, 1862, in the aftermath of the Battle of Shiloh. But yeah, check out the History Underground, and he did a great video about that. Viper Breeze, thank you. Been watching for a few years now. Love your channel. From Greenup County. Yes. Heck yeah. I've got family from Greenup County, Kentucky. Like all of my family's from that part of Kentucky. I've been in Greenup many times. My Staggs family, so Staggs, my great-great-grandmother on the Mallory side, which is my last name. Jemima Staggs was her name. She was born in Greenup County, as was Basil Abrams lived there, who was my fourth great-grandfather, and his daughter Serena, who was married to a man named John England. They were all from Greenup County. Ton of my family on both my mom and dad's sides come from Carter County, which is just to the south of you there. So that's awesome. Billy Ray Cyrus is from Greenup County as well. Big fan, love the content. Thank you for that. Does Scandinavian history interest you? Yes, it does. It's just not a topic I know enough about. You're from Denmark, the 1864 war. Yes, that's a time period. All of those, like the 1840s, 1850s, 1860s, 1870s, amazing history happening in Europe that I don't know nearly enough about. So that's a time period I need to cover more for sure. Did I have any names I wanted instead of Guardians? Yes, absolutely. I hate the name Guardians. I think it's dumb that we named our team after a couple of statues on a bridge outside the stadium. I wanted them to go to Spiders if they were going to go to, a name with historic ties. At one time, the team was the Cleveland Spiders. I thought that would have been great. Okay. Family Fantasy Football League. Thank you for that. Member for 57 months. I didn't even realize the channel had been around for 57 months. That's amazing. Thank you so much for that. I am grateful. I don't know if anybody else has been a member for 57 months. That's crazy. Thank you so much. Latino Presby. How much have you looked into church history and how has it influenced your theology, ecclesiology? Appreciate your work. As I mentioned earlier, the background that I have when it comes to church history is that I come from a background that views a lot of what happened between, say, the year 100 AD and the present to be a net negative on the church and theology. I'm not saying it all was at all. I'm just saying that once man gets his grubby little greedy hands on anything, including religion, we start corrupting it. And I think church history is fascinating. I think there's some incredible moments in church history. There's some incredible stories and great men and women of God in history. But I haven't studied it probably nearly as much as many people in my line of work do. Nerd Robot has a video comparing figures in the Bible to the Quran. That actually is a really interesting idea because I know that the Quran, like I know that in Islam, many of the figures in the Christian Bible or in the Jewish Torah are figures that are also seen as prophets in Islam. So that actually would be really an interesting topic. Where could you send videos to watch? There's a video I found claiming the Confederate Constitution did not require slavery. I've read it, and there isn't any explicit section saying so. So, yeah, you can in the comment section of any video, if you're not a member or a patron just in the comment section of any video, just mention the channel and the name of the video. Don't post a link because YouTube automatically filters those out. And if I don't go in later and see it and approve the post, it'll never show up. But if you are a member or a patron, you can send me a message that way, or on Discord. We have a channel on the Discord server where you can make recommendations for videos that way as well. All right, where are we at? Do I think the United States will recover or survive from radical violence? I mean, yeah, it's been much, much worse than it is right now. We need some perspective, folks. I'm not saying that things aren't bad in many ways right now, but taking the long view here and looking at history, we fought a civil war that killed like 3% of our population over our inability to get along and to come to compromises on major issues of our day. This is not the worst we've seen. I mean, I know that a lot of people have recency bias when it comes to a lot of topics. I've heard so many people say, for example, that this generation has it worse than any generation in history. And I know for some people that's hyperbole, but for some people, they actually believe that. And that's just insanity to me. So a little perspective goes a long way. Train Guru, thank you for that. Cool name, by the way. I'm guessing you like trains. Has America's attitude toward railroads negatively affected our perception of them, preventing change? I don't know if America's got a strong attitude toward railroads. I think most Americans probably don't have an attitude toward railroads one way or the other. I think they maybe a lot see it as an afterthought, a bygone era. Don't see it as something. I mean, you know, one of the main issues is that, for example, I know that people try to compare Europe to the United States when it comes to the ease with which you can get public transportation. But you have to keep things in perspective a little bit. England is the size of Alabama. Okay. The two largest cities in the UK are an hour apart by train. The two largest cities in the United States are a 5.5-hour flight apart. I mean, it really is apples to oranges. And having a strong rail network that will get you to most cities in America in a timely manner is just not a feasible solution for us. We are just by nature a car society. We were built that way. And I think we'll stay that way. Argument against my statement, China. Yeah, but China, again, China is not a country that grew the way the United States did and kind of spread with the use of the automobile. The automobile became, I mean, it started with the railroad, but the automobile became our main engine of expansion and moving and mobility in this country, maybe in a unique way. If you look at the stats, for example, at the beginning of World War II, look at the stats for car ownership in the United States versus the other major powers in World War II. It's dramatic, the difference between how many people in the US had a car and how many people, say, in Germany had a car. The United States has just always been a car culture. And I just don't think that's going to change. Yeah, absolutely. In some areas, public transport could absolutely be useful. And I love public transport. I use it all the time when I'm in Europe. It's just beyond planes. It hasn't really, I think, been feasible here. Okay. Idea for a video. Have your audience rewrite the Bill of Rights. The most liked comment is the First Amendment. 10th, the most 10th Amendment, and you review the results. That actually is a really cool idea. Wow. That would get really interesting, but I like that idea a lot. Joshua, thank you for that. I love hearing you talk about the Great War. I was wondering if you had any book recommendations about the American experience in World War I. There's one I read a while back that mostly focused on Pershing. And let me see if I can find the book. It's called 47 Days, how Pershing's warriors came of age to defeat the German army in World War One. It's not the best World War One book I've ever read, but it's a decent book that covers the Meuse-Argonne offensive, which is a big chunk of the American experience in World War One. Honestly, I haven't read a lot of books on that focus specifically on the Americans in World War One, because a lot of my focus has been specifically on the British and Commonwealth forces. Hey, Chris, I'm from Edinburgh. Hopefully we'll catch you sometime on your trip. I was just there briefly, very briefly, a couple of hours, but I will be there in July and August on the group trips for a little bit. How familiar with Edinburgh's history are you? Which is your favorite part of it? Not a ton. I mostly know it in connection to the British monarchy. So like the Stuarts, especially, James 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. Mary Queen of Scots, those folks. But not a ton beyond that. I know about Greyfriars Cemetery. I'm actually leading a tour of Greyfriars Cemetery on each of our Scotland tours. But beyond that, not a lot, not nearly enough, I don't think. Let's see. I'm trying to get caught up with 85 of these to get through. So I'm going to try to get all these. Which conspiracy do you believe is more likely than factual? None. Because if they were more likely factual, then more than likely factual, they wouldn't be a conspiracy theory. I say this all the time. Conspiracy theories, by definition, are conspiracy theories because there's not a lot of evidence to support them being true. So they become conspiracy theories. The evidence points to them not being true. If the evidence pointed to them being true, then they wouldn't be conspiracy theories anymore. Now, there have been times that things we thought were conspiracy theories became what turned out to be true, and we found the evidence. But honestly, I don't. I'm not a conspiracy theory person because, as I mentioned. So, what advice do you have for a 23-year-old that's trying to get into reading the Bible and really wants to understand it? That's a fantastic question, and I wish I had known how better to do that at 23. I would suggest get on some kind of a reading plan. There's a lot of websites that do those. There's a lot of great apps for daily Bible reading plans, and you can choose the type of plan you want. Do I want to do the whole Bible in a year? Do I want to do a chapter a day? And then get into, look for understanding. Context is everything with the Bible, right? So often we take things that were written for a specific group of people at a specific time in a specific place, and we try to apply them to ourselves, and it wasn't necessarily what was intended. There's a great example of this. One of the most quoted Bible verses is Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope in a future. And that's a great verse, and it's an encouraging verse. And people use it completely out of context. It was God, through Jeremiah, talking specifically to the exiled people of Israel about a very specific situation that they were in. Now, that doesn't mean that God doesn't also feel that way about us, but he wasn't talking to us when he said that. So those are the kinds of things I'm talking about with context. Context is everything. Understanding the meaning behind things, looking into those things. So a great example is a lot of people read John 3:16 and they say, just out of context, that one verse, that Jesus said, whoever believes in him will go to heaven. That's not what Jesus said for a number of reasons. Number one, the whole, you have to take the whole of the Bible. You can't just take a verse. It's called proof texting, when you take a single verse to make an argument. And I can make a theology out of a single verse pretty easily. It would be terrible theology, but I can do it. So number one, the Greek word that is used there, because the original was written when John wrote his gospel, he's writing in what we call Koine Greek, which is ancient Greek. And when he said, whosoever believes in him, that word, the best way I can describe it is if I created a Weston Bridges are 66 books in the Bible. I think there's 1,089 chapters. But if I stretched a tightrope across the Grand Canyon and had a wheelbarrow in my hand, and I said to you, do you believe that I can push this wheelbarrow across this tightrope on the Grand Canyon? And you said, yeah, I believe that. And I said, okay, great, get in. You see the difference between you saying, I believe you can walk across, and you getting in the wheelbarrow and believing that I'll push you across safely. The word that's used there is that it's like a complete investment. It's not, I believe in my mind that Jesus, in Jesus, it's, I'm putting all my eggs in that basket. I'm counting on Jesus being who he said he was for my eternal salvation. It's a completely different thing. But anyway, so those are just some helpful things in terms of understanding context. I don't want this to turn into a theology thing. So anyway, where are we at? I saw on YouTube a review of the movie Anastasia, and the guy said the best way to view it is as historical fairy tale rather than real history, like how The Patriot or Gladiator are historical fiction. That's a great way to do it. My daughter was a little girl when she watched Anastasia for the first time, and along comes historian dad to tell her, Anastasia actually died in Ekaterinburg in 1918, right? She didn't survive. And, just bursting my daughter's bubble by telling her the truth of Anastasia. So, yeah, that's a good way to look at it, I think. All Saints Kill. One more thing. My cousin Lilbon Dabney Satterwhite, Company F, 128th Infantry, Red Arrow Division, was KIA November 10th. Yeah. Oh gosh, that sucks. I actually did some research, family history research, several years ago for someone who had an uncle, a great uncle, who died of wounds on November 10th, like the last full day of the war. There's something especially tragic about that, I think. Grew up in Delco, PA. Now live in Collegeville in Montgomery County. Beautiful area. Love the French Creek and Hopewell Furnace historic sites nearby. What college in PA did you go to? Thiel College, Greenville, Pennsylvania. Thoughts on the Artemis 2 mission? It was awesome. I loved it. I thought it was interesting. I thought it was really cool. And we're making celebrities out of astronauts again, which is awesome. It seemed to be like, I made the point in talking about this that, there's a lot of parallels between Artemis 2 and Apollo 8. And Apollo 8 happened right at the end of 1968, which was a pretty awful year, not only for American history, but world history. And there was a message that was sent to the Apollo 8 astronauts that said, thank you, you saved 1968. And to a lesser degree, I feel like with everything that's going on in the world right now, it was a nice distraction. It was a nice thing to focus on that brought people together for a change. John Burns says, hope Canada does well this World Cup. Me too. I hope the U.S. just doesn't suck completely, but I'm a little nervous that's what's going to happen. Dylan, so do you have any videos about Ireland planned for the future? I'm watching you from Waterford City, which is the oldest city in Ireland. Awesome. Yeah, I need to do some more Irish history for sure. By the way, I see your Game of Thrones logo there, the Stark logo. So this was kind of cool. So anytime we do a group tour, like the one that we just did for Hadrian's Wall, we always have a group guide, somebody who's local, who knows the area, who knows what we're doing. And we had a guide named Joe. He was awesome dude. And about midway through the group trip, we're sitting around for dinner, and he just asks something about us, whether or not we like Game of Thrones. And we were all like, yeah, some didn't, but a bunch of us were like, yeah, we love Game of Thrones. And he said, well, if I'd have known that you guys liked Game of Thrones so much and that you guys were also into history like you are, I would have invited my uncle to come hang out with us. His uncle is Jerome Flynn. His mother's brother, Jerome Flynn, who plays Bronn in Game of Thrones, one of my favorite characters. He also was one of the stars of Ripper Street, which is another one of my favorite shows. So yeah, Bronn's nephew was our group guide last week in England. And it was crazy. And now I might book another Hadrian's Wall tour just so I can get Joe, because Joe does most of those tours, just so I can get Joe to to bring Jerome down to hang out with us. All right. What are some cool facts about Hadrian's Wall that you learned? So one of the things that I didn't know was how advanced some of the Roman towns were up there. I thought this is like the frontier, right? This is way out on the frontier. They're going to be like living the basics, right? They're not going to have all the running water and the bathhouses and all the really cool stuff they had like down around London or that they had in Rome and places like that. But no, we explored some of the towns that were found and they're still being excavated. And they had all of that stuff. I mean, maybe not to the same degree and not as big, but they did. And they had all the penis graffiti like all the other Roman cities I've seen have. Housestead's Fort, Hadrian's Wall. They had all that stuff. I highly recommend. JD says it right. It is next level amazing. The scenery is just out of this world. Such beautiful scenery for days and days and days. Great history. The stuff they have found that they're still finding. There's active archaeology sites on several of the major sites. And we were talking to the archaeologists and they were pulling out plastic bags and they're like, well, here's what we found so far today. And they're pulling the stuff out and showing it to us. The Vindolanda tablets, Eldon, excellent point. If you haven't read about the Vindolanda tablets, do it. Vindolanda is a Roman town, a Roman fort that has been uncovered, massive fort. And they found what amounts to a bunch of postcards. It was really thinly cut wood that had ink written on it. And because of the nature of the way that it had been packed into the ground under the other layers, it was preserved. And they found hundreds of them. And a lot of them are like one example is the one he said with the woman's signature. It's the oldest example of female handwriting in the Western world ever, to my knowledge. And it was basically her writing to the sister, to the wife of a governor in the next town over, inviting her to a birthday party. And it was that kind of stuff. It was like everyday life stuff, which was really, really cool. So check out the Vindolanda tablets when you get a chance. What is the greatest misconception people have about the Civil War? It doesn't get talked about much. I think it's getting talked about more, but this idea that they were chopping off arms and legs right and left without any anesthetic, that just didn't happen. 97% of all amputations done during the American Civil War were done under some form of anesthetic. It just rarely happened. And when it did happen, it was usually because they ran out in a really, really big battle and didn't have access to the supplies. Okay, where are we at? Could you really quickly explain the border states in the Civil War and if they had slavery? Yes. So West Virginia, it's arguable about whether it's a border state, but so West Virginia doesn't exist when the war breaks out, right? So the border states, we're talking about states that didn't formally join the Confederacy, but still had legal slavery. So Missouri, Kentucky, Delaware, Maryland. West Virginia is a relatively slaveless part of Western Virginia, which is a slave, Virginia is a slave state that did not really support secession, and so ended up seceding from Virginia and joined the Union as West Virginia. So those are the border states, and that's basically all there is to it. Remember doing a live stream voting through the presidential elections? Yeah, we didn't do the third part yet. I do want to get to that, but it had been so long since we had done one of these just kind of Q&A sessions that I wanted to do this before we get back into some of those themed ones. So we will finish that. Mr. Berker, thank you for that. Cam, New York 1, thank you for that. What did I think of Sherrod Brown as your senator? Disagree with him on most things, but I think he's a perfectly adequate person, and I see nothing wrong with him as a person or in character. I just not somebody I'd personally vote for. Decent chance that he wins, though. I think it'll be interesting to see. I wouldn't be surprised one bit if he wins. Mike, thank you for that. If you read or listen to one book about the French Indochina War, please read Hell in a Very Small Place by Bernard B. Fall. It's about the siege of Dien Bien Phu. So we're talking about 1954. that's when the French basically lose control of what is now Vietnam, and the culmination of France's war in Indochina. Interesting, very cool. I will definitely put that on my list. That's another topic I know so little about. And I take pictures of some of these things so I can remember them. It is everything leading up to that area, to the Vietnam War, especially things like that. Have I seen History Buff's video on Apollo 13? Yes, it's been a while, but yes, I have. If I've tried historical tabletop gaming, it's been a long time, but I have done my fair share of it in the past. There's a TTG con called Adepticon in Milwaukee. Interesting, very cool. I went to Cold Wars a few times in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Most introverted and extroverted presidents. Oh gosh. I mean, I have no way of knowing that without knowing their personalities, but I mean, Bill Clinton's clearly an extrovert, right? I mean, that's the first one that I think of when I think of that. Introvert, I think George Washington was probably an introvert. So those are the first ones I can think of. Good evening from Denmark. Thank you so much for that. Appreciate that. What do I think of Victorian values? Do you think there's a lot we could learn from them despite the faults of the era? I think there's something to be learned from every era, right? I mean, there are always lessons to be learned, whether they're what to do or what not to do. One of the things I was saying earlier in Discord was I've probably learned more about what not to do in writing a book through this process of writing Trumbull County Boys than anything. I feel like the next book that I write, which I'm going to give myself some downtime after this because it's been a pretty crazy couple of months getting this book finished. But maybe this fall I'll start really working on the next one. I learned so much through the mistakes that I made, through making things way harder than they needed to be, that the next time I write, it's going to go a lot smoother. The process of writing, the process of formatting, the process of researching, the process of taking orders and getting the books out, all of that's going to go so much better because I made so many mistakes along the way this time around. And that's true in life. I think the Victorian era doesn't exist anymore because there are things we learned from it, or there are things we didn't learn and we moved on. So every era, I would say that's the case. Just got a new youth pastor job. Advice. Yeah. Oh gosh. Again, probably I learned what not to do. Honestly, in hindsight, I look back on my 14 years of full-time youth ministry, and I see a lot more I did wrong than I did right. Honestly, I don't think I was very good at it. And that's hard to admit because I feel like there's probably a lot of students out there that would tell me that I was, and that I had a huge impact on their lives. And I hope that's the case, but I feel like there's a lot more I could have done. I guess what I would say to you is listen a lot. Listen a lot. And that's just life advice, right? Listen a lot. Value your students as people first before you try to preach at them, before you try to tell them what they're doing wrong, before you try to even, if you have a kid that comes from outside the church and doesn't know the first thing about Christianity, before you try to convert them, try to understand them. Get to know people, because when you get to know people and when they get to know you, and let them get to know you. I'm not saying get up there and tell them every mistake you've ever made and tell them all the bad things about your past. But there are times and places where you have opportunities. And I'll give you a great example in my own life. I remember there was a student in my youth ministry who never met his father. And there were a lot of kids that I picked up and dropped off for youth. I drove them around in a 15-passenger van, and I'd spend 2 hours after our youth ministry night dropping kids off. And we were talking, and he was convinced that he was never going to amount to anything in his life because he didn't have his father in his life. And I used that as an opportunity to ask him a question. Well, do you think that I've made anything of my life? I've got a wife, I've got a kid, He said, I think you got a great life. I would love to have the life you have. And I said, well, I've never met my father. And it was a light bulb moment for him because he was able to see that exactly the thing that he felt was destroying his life had happened in my life, and I overcame it. And that spoke so much louder than any Bible verse I could have thrown at him in that moment. So just be open with your life and let them get to know you, and the opportunities will come to speak into their lives and to have input, and they'll welcome that when that happens. So we the noobs, thank you for that. M. Burker, Tom Holland, the son-in-law of a late family friend. Very cool. And I didn't know for a long time that Tom Holland was James Holland's brother. James Holland, the World War II historian. So I thought that was pretty cool. My kids are screaming a lot downstairs, and I have no idea what's going on, but I think someone may be dying. Maybe early to ask, but since you didn't vote, at least for president in 24, what about the midterms? You have an idea of what you're leaning towards? Yeah, I mean, in the midterms, I'm going to vote for my current congressman, Michael Ruley. I know Michael Ruley. I've met him several times. His wife was my high school classmate. I graduated with his wife, so I know her really well. I spoke at her at the school that she works at. She works at a local school. I think very highly of them. I don't always agree with him politically, but I do like him, and I think he's doing a good job, and I'm going to vote for him. Okay, I'm working on a video about the Lincoln assassination. Which man in the background of his second inauguration? Yeah, it is mixed because nobody knows for sure. I think I saw you comment about that on Discord. There's a couple of different theories about which one it is, and I don't think there's any way to conclusively prove it. Hi, Chris. When I hope to visit the church one day. I'm not entirely sure what you mean by that, but okay, thank you. Thoughts on Silent Calvin Coolidge? I love Cal. I think he probably is the last president that fits what George Washington really wanted the presidency to be, which is more of an executive that just executes the laws and kind of keeps the ship of state moving forward without doing all kinds of crap to rock the boat one way or the other. Thank you for that, Tanner. It's been a while. You might find this interesting, but I'm working on the Czech practice stadium for the FIFA games down in Texas. Also, if you were to go back and play one role from Band of Brothers, who would you like to play? Ooh, that's a great question. I mean, who would I like to play? Winters, obviously, because that's such an amazing character, but I don't think I'd be a good fit for Winters. I'm trying to think of who among the characters is the one that I probably feel like I would be the most like. Wow, I'm not really sure about that. Trying to think. You know what? I really like Buck Compton. I think Buck Compton's a cool character, somebody that I like, that I think reflects a lot of who I wish I could be in that kind of scenario. That leads well, but also cares deeply about his men. Things like that. Okay, where are we at? Hey, Bucks County, PA here. Very cool. Any plans to react to Sabaton? I haven't for a while, but I will get to some more Sabaton reactions at some point. And I also, sometime in a month or so, may be doing a little collab with a member of Sabaton in a very unique way. But that's all I'll say because I'm not entirely sure how much I'm allowed to say about it yet. But you will see me in a video or a live stream with a member of Sabaton sometime in the next 6 weeks. That's all I'll say. Okay. Yeah. So on part 3 live stream, I think I already answered that. So yes, we will be doing that at some point. I love a video on how you would vote. You know, I've thought about that, but I'm not entirely sure how I'm so tainted by what I know about those presidencies that I don't know how fairly I could do that. Mystery 184 became a member. Thank you so much for that. The TP 123 is oversimplified. Okay, we need a wellness check. Great question. I have no idea what's going on there. Big fan. Any thoughts on the Greenspan Commission put together by Reagan? Personally, I think it's one of the most underrated domestic achievements. You know what? I don't remember a whole lot about that. I assume you're talking about Alan Greenspan. I don't remember much about that, honestly, so I can't really offer my thoughts too well about that. AVTH wondering if you ever react to Kings and Generals, other civil. Yeah, I'll do some more. I've done so much Civil War content, right? You know, I try to mix it up and try not to do the same stuff all the time. And right now, especially, I'm going to do a dedicated video about this probably in the next couple of days. You've probably seen a lot of other people making videos about just the struggle that's going on right now for long form content creators on YouTube. All of us are hurting, especially in the history space. Even guys like Mr. Beast, his views are down like 50% in the last couple of months because YouTube is beating everyone over the head with shorts. And they're prioritizing it so much, trying to beat out TikTok and Instagram Reels and stuff like that, that they're killing long form content creators. And I even had YouTube reach out to me a couple of days ago and say, hey, how can we help you to start making shorts more often? And you know, they're even pushing people who are historically successful with long form content creation and saying, hey, you need to start doing shorts. And it's killing because like when you go to YouTube, all the recommendations you see like 2 rows of shorts and then a row of maybe 4 long form content videos. And I get constantly people telling me that they never see my videos recommended anymore, even though they're subscribed to me. And if you think about it, if you're subscribed to 40 different channels and YouTube's only recommending 4 videos to you, that means most of the people you're subscribed to, you're not seeing their new content because they're shoving these shorts down your throat. So you can turn off shorts recommendations in your phone app. And I showed on yesterday's video how to do that, but I don't know yet that there's a way to do it on the computer or on the TV. But I am going to make a video about that tomorrow or sometime in the next couple of days, because we're all hurting right now. Ad revenue and views and watch time are way, way down. New subscribers are the worst they've ever been for a lot of us. And I've been talking to a ton of history content creators, and they're all saying the same thing. I was even looking the other day at Drew Durnall's channel, and you know, he's got like 3 times or 4 times, 5 times the subscribers that I do. And his views are, you know, how many? I mean, here, I want to take a look at this for a second. I won't pull it up on the screen, but I'm going to look at it for a second just to give you an example of what I'm talking about. So Drew Durnall he has 3 times my subscribers. He's got 1.5 million subscribers. And his new videos are getting like he has a video from a week ago that has 10,000 views, and one from 6 days ago that has 13,000 views. Somebody with 1.5 million subscribers should not be getting 10,000 views on a new video in the first week. It's nuts that that's happening. And that's what's happening to all of us. So transition that to a call to all of you. If you've ever considered supporting your favorite content creators, myself or anyone else, through Patreon or membership, but especially Patreon, because what you don't know about membership and super chats, maybe you don't know, is every time you do a super chat, so say you do a $10 super chat, $4 of that goes to YouTube. I get 6 of it. So 40% of all of that, you know, if you're a member, 40% of your membership goes to YouTube. On Patreon, it's more like 5%. So most of that money when you support a creator on Patreon is going to that creator. And honestly, with the way things are down a lot for so many of us, Patreon may be the only thing that keeps a lot of channels alive because of this YouTube focus on shorts. But I'll talk more about that in that dedicated video. Have you ever thought about visiting Long Island? So I've been there several times, but I do need to get back. I went to Setauket. I went to Theodore Roosevelt's gravesite. My kids are descended from the Gardner family who had Gardiner's Island on the end of Long Island. If you look at the end of Long Island, in between the two little legs that stick out of Long Island, there's an island in the middle that's still privately owned by the Gardner family. And my kids are descended from that family. Welsh Wing, I recommend checking out Things I Care About's video on World War One. I saw that there was one. So that might be interesting to check out. Tyler, thank you for that. Started doing my family tree and got to family who migrated from Germany sometime between 1880 and 1900. It's a good way to figure out what his name would have been. Well, his name should be what it is, right? There's a myth that when people came through Ellis Island, they forced them to change their name. That didn't happen. They would often write down the name that they thought they heard, right? And that's true in the census too. It's how my last name is Maori, which is English, but my ancestors were Maur. When they first came to America, it was still Maur, and for several generations it was Maur, and then it started morphing into Maury, Maury, and then eventually they still pronounce it Maury down in Kentucky, but it's spelled Mowery. So I would start with what the name is. Now, if you know your ancestors were from Germany and say your ancestor's name is Smith, and you know that they came from Germany, well, it was probably Schmidt, because Schmidt and Smith, same thing, right? So there's a lot of that went on, and a lot of people just chose on their own to anglicize their name so they fit in better, but they were never forced to when they immigrated to the United States, anything like that. Where they came from, the best bet would be to, if you can find their immigration record, specifically when they came over, it might say what their hometown was, depending on when. Like, especially if they came through Ellis Island, they probably said what town they came from. Or at the very least, if you can find their name on a ship manifest, you can see what port the ship left from. Probably Hamburg if it was Germany. But if it was, say, Trieste, then you might know that maybe they came from southern Germany because they went to a port, in the Balkans instead. If you were to grade the cabinet of the current administration versus all the other administrations, what grade are you giving? Honestly, I don't know how to grade the current cabinet because I think so much of it is just basically they're Trump's yes men. So they're going to do whatever, he says. But I think Marco Rubio has been a very, very good Secretary of State. I think so. When I think of Trump's cabinet, that's the first one that comes to mind. He's been the most visible, and I think he's done a really solid job. Hey, Books and Battlefields, I'm doing great. What did I study in college? Well, it depends on which time, right? So my first degree of study out of high school was history. So I went to Thiel College for history. But eventually I went into ministry. And so then my degree was in Bible and theology. So take a pick. Have I ever visited the Pea Ridge battlefield? No, I have not, but I need to for sure. Need to get out to the Trans-Mississippi Theater. Saw a trailer for the movie called The Brink of War about the 1986 Reykjavik summit. I just saw that too. Jeff Daniels as Reagan, Jared Harris, who's in everything anymore, which is great. And Gorbachev. Yes, I did see the trailer for that. That's an excellent one. I'm curious to see how that goes. Having moved to the Netherlands from New York, a lot of stuff about New Netherland, New Amsterdam makes a lot more sense, especially, place names like Harlem, right? So absolutely. Thank you for that, Industrialized. Love your channel. Pre-ordered your book. I am working on a book about World War II factories. My angle is to compare Germany's versus the Allied. That's fantastic. I like that idea a lot because I talk all the time about lenses through which to view history, right? And viewing it that way is great. I love a new angle on a topic that a lot of people are interested in, but in a unique way. Any recommendations for what you should include in the book? I don't know. I mean, it sounds like you have a pretty good idea of what you want. It's probably going to be interesting to see how they were similar and how they were different, because I know a lot of GIs, a lot of American soldiers felt like Germany was the country that most seemed like home, in terms of the people, in terms of the culture, in terms of the nation. And I think that's probably true. So there's probably a lot of parallels to be drawn between how, look at how the US did things versus how Germany did things. But then there's also the contrast, right? How much government involvement there was, how the culture impacted the way that they did things. Obviously, during World War II itself, you have Germany using a lot of slave labor, which is one of the driving forces, right, behind why Germany had to keep conquering new territories and acquiring new slave labor, because the nature of their economy required that, needed to be fed with that. So I think that's a really interesting one for sure. All right, I'm going to try to get caught up on these. I'm going to ask everybody to start winding down on doing any new super chats. I hate that I have to do that, but I'm so far behind on the super chats that I don't want to miss out on any by not getting to them in time. So I'm going to try to fly through these a little more if I can. Would I want to get a tour of Michigan's state capitol? Yeah, if I'm ever in Lansing, I would love to do that for sure. Ever been to Fort Wayne? Yes, but it's probably been 20 years or more since I've been to Fort Wayne. Rumor has it we almost got a Total War Great War. How disappointing. I know that there were mods for that, right? I mean, I feel like the Great War doesn't lend itself easily to the Total War way of playing very well. It's better off for like Civil War and earlier. Will ever watch Epic History TV's China series? Yeah, for sure. Love how they do their videos. That's a topic I need to learn better. Please react to the history of LATAM. America history goes beyond the 42nd parallel. Also, will you ever go back to Costa Rica? I'd love to go back to Costa Rica someday. My sister was just there like last year, I think it was. So when reading a new history book, how can you tell if the author is being truthful about history? Well, you go to the sources, right? What sources are they using? If they're giving you their sources, go look at the primary sources. For example, my book, I made a decision that some people may criticize, and that's fine. What I realized was when I got down to it, and I was going into the process of documenting my sources for the book, I looked at like probably 30 different books that I have on my shelves to see if there was any consistency to how other historians documented their sources, and there's not at all. For example, the book Band of Brothers, which is the one that I was modeling my book after, being a company level study, Stephen Ambrose didn't use sources at all. I mean, he had a few footnotes here and there, but for the most part, there are no sources in that book. Basically, he just said, you know what? I talked to these guys and I wrote down what they told me, and that's my source. So that's one extreme. And then you have the people who do the sources on every single page at the bottom of the page. And I wasn't going to do that either. So I found a happy medium. I found that a lot of modern historians are basically just listing their sources at the back, and then they're mentioning them as the information is introduced. And so what you'll find in Trumbull County Boys is, for the most part, that's what I did with most of my primary sources, which my book is heavily primary sources. It's letters, it's firsthand reports, it's diaries, it's a book written by a soldier after the war. It's stuff like that. So it's all eyewitness accounts, writing down what they saw, what they heard. And so then in the book, if Edward Downes wrote in a letter to the Tribune, or to the Warren Western Reserve Chronicle, it's called the Tribune today. If he wrote a letter to the Western Reserve Chronicle saying this about the battle, that's what I said in the book. I said in his letter to the Chronicle, Captain Downes said this, right? So instead of then also documenting that, I just listed all those sources at the end so people can go look them up for themselves. But I mentioned them in the book directly like that. So, but like I said, there's so many different ways that people do it anymore. Yeah, some people do it like a research paper. Some people just don't even bother with sources, which is also annoying. So I would just say go to the sources. Even with Wikipedia, you can do that. People give Wikipedia a bad rap, but you can go down to the bottom and see exactly, like if in the Wikipedia article it says X, Y, or Z, just click on the little footnote there, or on the little, documentation, and find out what the source is, and then go look at the source for yourself and find out if it's a, primary source or if that person's also giving their opinion, kind of thing. One thing I will say this, and then I'll move on. I am very, very cautious when it comes to a book in which an author says everything that you've been told about this really, really well researched and well documented historical event has been wrong. Buy my book because I'm going to set everybody straight. By and large, they are giving you a theory that is their own or is a minority opinion that is not backed up by the majority of the facts. And they're just trying to tell you that everybody else got it wrong, so they'll buy your book. So I get really nervous about that unless there's some real compelling new information that completely upends everything, and that's really, really rare that happens. All right, do I think that this evangelical people influencing administration are more division? Been watching Pastor Paul Dries, and he has interesting views that many of what Hegseth, Miller, and Trump are teaching are against the teachings of Jesus. I'm not entirely sure what you mean by that, Patrick, but I would definitely not use Pete Hegseth or Donald Trump as your source for good biblical theology. That's all I'll say about it. Exactly, Eldon. The 20th Ohio single-handedly won the Civil War. I'm glad that you agree with me. And you should have your book really soon. Yours already went out. So, oh no, wait, you have yours. What am I talking about? I gave you yours in England last week. So, Brenton Holbrook, even though I'm a Michigander, could use some advice. Give some advice on how to accurately trace genealogy using Ancestry or other similar sites. All right, number one, if somebody has it in their family tree, don't assume it's true. There's a lot of people who just, oh, here's a leaf, and it says that this is who my great-great-grandfather was. I'll add that to my tree. They don't document it. They don't source it. They just copy it off of somebody else's tree. Don't do that. Document. If you can't prove it, don't put it. Census is a great starting point. Then you can do the deep dive into things like birth records, death records, marriage records, family histories, cemetery records. There's a lot of really niche resources you can get into, but start there. Most of the stuff that you're going to need to compile your family tree is going to be accessible on Ancestry.com, FamilySearch.org, MyHeritage, sites like that. Do I check my Instagram DMs? Not every day, and I don't always get good notifications of those. You saw there was something odd on my website that you sent to me. Okay. I'm not aware of that, but I'll check it out. Loved your recent video on a summary of 1900 before World War I. He also has a video on the context of the world before World War II. Okay, very cool. That's a good one to check out on that same channel. From Indonesia, maybe you could learn a little. Yeah, I would love to learn some Indonesian history. I mentioned that earlier about wanting to learn more history about that part of the world. Threads from the National Tapestry. I have not, but I've heard of them briefly. I'm going to take a picture of that so I can go subscribe to that channel and check it out. Okay. Have you thought about making a religious or Christian channel, reacting and learning only religions and different doctrines? So I do some of that already on VTH Extra. I thought about maybe even doing a separate channel altogether for Christian stuff, but man, I got so many channels already. I don't know. I might just keep doing it on Extra. We'll see. As a Browns fan, would you rather have Jimmy Haslam remain your team owner or Woodrow Wilson coach your football team? He was indeed a football coach in the 1870s. I saw that. I'd rather Jimmy Haslam remain my owner. I don't want anything to do with Woodrow Wilson. Fat Electrician's lawyer friend, Internet Esquire, did an interesting 2-part video on the Bill of Rights and its 800-year history. Very cool. I'll have to keep that in mind. Check that out. Longtime fan, what are your honest thoughts about Israel and how they have influenced the U.S. and the world since Gaza too? I talked about this some on a video a couple days ago. If I do talk more about the topic, I'll let you know in a future video. But for now, everything I want to say about that topic, I already said in that video the other day. Have I been to the Robert Shaw Memorial? I'm assuming you're talking about the one, the very famous one that It's not just Robert Shaw; it's a memorial to the 54th Massachusetts. Yeah, right there in the like the park, right there at the edge of the park. Yes, I have been there. Are there any animals you're afraid of? Yeah, anything that can kill me. So basically everything in Australia. Um, Read Covenant with Death by John Harris. Peter, devout Christian, and Christopher Hitchens, atheist, rated it. Sheffield City Battalion at Sayre. Interesting. Very cool. So if you are interested in doing our Western Front tour, we will be going to Sheffield Memorial Park at Sayre. It's one of my favorite spots on the Western Front. If you've seen my video about the Accrington Pals, you know how special that site is to me. So check that out. If you guys are just joining, we have one spot left on the Scotland tour and about 30 spots left on the Western Front tour. And I will be starting to announce 2027 tours in the not too distant future. So be watching for those as well. But links are always in the description of videos, including this live stream, for you to be able to check out the group tours. My German grandfather actually got arrested during World War II when he was in the Kriegsmarine. Interesting. He withdrew too much money accidentally and didn't report it. Wow. That's a fascinating little like tidbit of a connection to history that I love. I love those little stories. I heard it's all quiet on the Western Front. Sounds relaxing. I mean, it is now. It's a beautiful area. Rylan, I try to, right? I mean, I'm not balanced. Obviously, I'm biased. But I do, as much as possible, try to acknowledge my bias and see past it to see other viewpoints that might not reflect my own personal. I am from Ohio. I am definitely a fellow Buckeyes fan. Absolutely. And that is a great segue right into a Wolverine. Would love to organize a trip through northern Michigan and Mackinac. There's so much history here. Interesting. I don't know if I'd ever do a group tour there. I don't know if there's that much to do, but would still be interesting to visit. What would you say is an underrated era of American history, like early America after we got our independence? Yeah, I would say like the period, like say War of 1812 to the war in Mexico, right? Like that's a time period we don't necessarily talk a lot about beyond slavery and expansion. And, you know, there's so much else going on at that time. Nice to see this channel again. Regrettably, I neglected due to constant working. I hope you're doing well and praise the Lord. Thank you, Nerd Jacob. I hope you're doing well also. From your religious view, how do you connect evolution and theology? Did God start the process or was it by chance? Well, here's the thing. I feel like there's still a lot we just don't know, right? I mean, and I was actually having this conversation with somebody on the Hadrian's Wall tour last week. No matter what you believe, there's an element of unprovability to some of it. Like we can observe to a limited degree evolution, but the reason it's a theory is because by its very nature, something that takes a long time over many, many years, we can't really observe it happening. We can see natural selection happening, and we can see great examples of that. And we can infer things from the evidence, much like we do with religion, for example. You take the evidence that's been presented, you infer things, you form beliefs based on what you've been presented with, but then eventually there's elements of it you're just never going to be able to prove. So honestly, I don't know. I'm not somebody who rejects the idea of evolution. I think natural selection absolutely happens. I have a lot of questions about how rapidly it happened or whether it happened the way that people exactly say it does. But absolutely, God could have used that process. God could have created everything, and then natural selection happens and evolution happens. And that is not outside of the realm of or the scope of how God could have chosen for things to happen. Yeah, that's exactly that. Hundreds or even thousands or, tens of thousands of years. It's the same thing with the Big Bang, for example. And you constantly see, for example, news stories about how scientists say that they've completely rethought this particular aspect of how the universe was formed. because it's evolving. It's something that as new information comes in, they add it to what they already have, and it sometimes changes what they thought they knew. So I think that that's the case with many things that you can't necessarily just prove. Yeah, I already talked about this one. Sherrod Brown. Have you watched Cody's Dunkirk timeline video? I have not. Deer was taken. That's horrific. Pineapple should not be anywhere near pizza, nor should anchovies. Ugh, ugh. Have I ever checked out Wild West Extravaganza? I have not. Interesting. Old West, that's a great topic that I love learning about. Do I love orchestral music? I do. It's not something I sit around and listen to a lot. It's a lot like my music of choice, but I do. And we went and saw a performance in Vienna, Austria, of Beethoven, Mozart, stuff like that. It was fantastic. I loved it. I'm a conservative in Southwest Virginia with the recent 10-1 gerrymander passed here and others elsewhere. Do I think? I don't think the federal government's going to do anything. And guess what? I think the floodgates are open now. Now that happened in Virginia, and I know I can already hear you guys typing, yeah, but Virginia only did it because of X, Y, and Z. Yeah, but it's a little different now because now you have a state that Kamala Harris won by less than 6%. That's going to be 10-1 in favor of her party. Everybody was complaining a year ago about Ohio, a state that Trump won by 14%, where it's going to be 10-5 in favor of Trump's party. It's just like now, I guarantee you in Ohio, our overwhelmingly Republican legislature is already thinking how they're going to do this. I guarantee you a bunch of other states are going to do it. And then Democrat states are going to react to that as they already have. And, no matter where you point to, if you say, oh, Texas started it, well, no, look at Illinois' districts. Illinois did it a long time before Texas did, and those are nuts, the districts in Illinois. And gerrymandering is called gerrymandering because it was named after a guy who lived 200 years ago, because it was happening 200 years ago. So no matter where you point to as a starting point, it was happening before that. And there's no one party to blame. There's no one state to blame. They've all been doing it. It's just now the gloves are off and nobody's even trying to hide that they're doing it. And I think it's only going to get worse now. And that's terrible. What are your thoughts on UP-NSRR merger? So Union Pacific and Norfolk Southern Railroad, I'm assuming is what you mean by that. It's a modern version of the ICC Act independently enough from no, nothing is free from partisan influence, unfortunately. Hopefully, all you can hope for is that it's less influenced than other things. Peace be with you. I live in London, the UK one. Hope you visit again soon. Me too. Which film do you like better, Charlton Heston's Ben-Hur or Charlton Heston's 10 Commandments? Ooh, they're both so good, but I'm going to go with Ben-Hur. And I have a soft spot, for Ben-Hur because it was written by Lew Wallace, who was the 20th Ohio's division commander. So, it all goes back to the 20th Ohio. Which do I prefer, the monarchy system or parliamentary? Both. I prefer what the UK has. Constitutional monarchy with a parliament. That's the system I want. It's never going to happen, but that's the system I like. What team do I have winning the Stanley Cup? Man, you caught me. I have no clue who's even playing. I don't really follow hockey. I was just starting to get into the Columbus Blue Jackets a little bit, and then they didn't make the playoffs, so then I stopped watching again. So honestly, I have no idea. Go Penguins, if they can stay alive long enough in their series. How do I think the Battle of Gettysburg would have gone if Lee had died at Chancellorsville and Stonewall Jackson was the commander of the Army of Northern Virginia? Worse. I think Lee was a much better general than Jackson. And Jackson, again, doesn't matter. End result, Union still wins the war either way. Historiograph is a great series on the French Indochina War. Okay, very cool. What would have happened if Biden had run in 2016 instead of Clinton? Biden wins. I think Biden wins. Better or worse timeline? I think the Republican Party stays more mainstream conservative rather than what it's become, MAGA. If Trump goes away, not that he necessarily would have gone away, but maybe. Love your history videos. Please react to Japanese history. Yes. Japanese history is very fascinating. And again, not something I know well enough. God seems cruel if everything is planned by him. How does one justify cruelty out of their control? I remember vividly praying for my dad as a kid while I watched him slowly die of cancer. Fantastic question that a lot of people have wrestled with, and there's no easy answer that I can answer in a quick answer here on YouTube, except to say I can only give you my background as a Christian and my theology on it, which is that with sin brought into the world, and we're all guilty of sin, came the curse of sin, which is people dying of cancer and car accidents and all this other stuff. And a lot of people will point to that and say that's evidence that God isn't in control. But Christian theology would say, no, it's evidence that God is letting us have what we wanted, right? As a parent, sometimes you can only tell your kid so often, don't do that, and then have them keep doing it before you finally say, okay, go ahead and do it, but you're going to suffer the consequences if you do that. And while you don't want them to do that, you're not going to force them to not do it. And that's not a great answer in a short time here, but that's the reality. The reality is people get cancer and we pray for them and they die. But this world was never intended to be our forever home anyway. So the whole point, if there's a point to the gospel of Christ, it's that if cancer doesn't get me today or a car accident doesn't get me tomorrow, old age will get me 40 years from now. One way or another, I will no longer be on this planet. And I need to be thinking about that. And I need to be preparing for that. And as somebody who believes in eternity, I believe whatever happens to me here, I'm ready for that. So I'm sorry about your dad, by the way. That's what an awful thing that you had to experience. And I wish no kid had to experience that. What do I think of the Puritans? I think they were religious extremists who complained about religious freedom only to deny it to a lot of other people. Excited for the book. Your channel is an incredible source of motivation as I career transition to the medical field. Am I going to the December Sabaton show in Pittsburgh? Yes, I am. Also, most overrated Civil War book or movie? Most overrated movie. Well, for anybody who thinks Gods and Generals is a fantastic movie, I would say that. I don't know if there is a really overrated one, because I think most of the ones that people don't like are pretty well known as ones people don't like. Book. I don't know. I don't know if there is one that I would say is overrated. I'm sorry, that's not a great answer for you, but I can't think of any. Favorite and least favorite song on the new Sabaton album. Favorite would have to be I Emperor. I like that one a lot. Least favorite, honestly, I couldn't even tell you a least favorite. Let me look at the track list again. Impaler is really good too. Let me look at the track list again. I haven't listened to it for a little while. Crossing the Rubicon's really good too. Maybe it's Crossing the Rubicon. Oh gosh. Made of Steel is really good. I like Made of Steel. I wasn't a huge fan of Till Seeger, however it's pronounced. I could do without that one. Thoughts on third-party politics and past? Oh gosh, I wish we had a valid third party. I wish we had like a fourth and a fifth party as well. Were you or are you still a teacher? I substituted. That was about it. I never worked full-time as a teacher. I actually have been. I went into youth ministry right out of college. Um, who was the most forgettable president of the 20th century? You think Harding? Forgettable. Wow. Maybe Taft. Probably Taft or Harding. Either way, it's an Ohio president. The one I'd like to forget is Woodrow Wilson. How would I describe Abraham Lincoln in one sentence? Most brilliant politician that's ever been president. And I mean specifically his brilliance as a politician. I don't mean he's necessarily the smartest person who's ever been president. Most adept, most skilled politician we've ever had as president. What do I think of Bernie Sanders? Here in Germany, would probably be the member of the Socialist Party. I don't necessarily agree with Bernie Sanders' views, but I do believe he genuinely cares about people and genuinely believes that his policies would help people. I do think he's a genuine guy. I see the appeal. I see why people like him. And I think his motives are pure from that standpoint, even if I don't agree with them necessarily. Absolutely love history. Your content's been great. Thank you. Larry Williams, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Thoughts on the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz? Do I think it will be successful? I don't know. There's a lot of stuff coming out now about whether or not the Iranian government is in chaos, and it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out over the next couple of days. I just wish they'd open up the thing. I did see that the United Arab Emirates have said that they're leaving OPEC, which if that causes a domino effect by a few other members, that could be huge, and that could end up being the thing long term that we talk about from all of this. So interesting. That's going to be interesting to watch. I don't know if it's going to be successful or not. YouTube is killing attention spans with shorts. Absolutely. So is TikTok. So is Facebook and Instagram. Saw history with lightning the other day. I assume you're talking about death by lightning. If I could pick a president to get the miniseries treatments, Grant 100%. Grant would be amazing as a miniseries. Such an incredible story. Favorite British Prime Minister? I'm a Churchill guy. I don't know enough about the prime ministers beyond the fact that I hate David Lloyd George. Just because I know of his involvement in World War I, and I'm not a fan. Would love a British unit version of Band of Brothers. I would too. I think that'd be great. Rogue Heroes is a great watch. I would be all for that. That'd be fantastic. Hello from another Chris in New Mexico. Very cool. I love New Mexico. Beautiful state. All right, we're trying to get caught up here. Just completed your UK ETA information. Nice, John Burns. Good until next July when my passport expires, but I'm very excited. August, yes. You're going to the tattoo on the 14th. I'm going to the tattoo on the 22nd. So yeah, going to the got ticket for the tattoo after the tour is over. So really excited about that. In Glasgow too. Nice, very cool. Will you cover British politics in your videos? I don't know about modern British politics. Not really my fight. I'm interested in it, but it's not something that I really feel is a focus for me. Be especially interested in a focused analysis of New Labor and how it compares to Bill Clinton's New Democrat movement. Interesting. Commenting from Roseville, California, right out of Sacramento. Still love our railroads and the history out here. The Golden Spike is in a glass case. Nice. Very cool. That's a beautiful area in Northern California. All right, we're trying to get caught up here. Any plans to visit Asia and do a history trip? Yes. Japan or China will be first, I would guess. Maybe next year. We'll see. Working on that. Big fan from Rochester, Minnesota. As a pastor and a historian, how do you interpret biblical events, specifically the more fantastical parts? I actually talked about this the other day in the video about biblical figures who appear in archaeology. And I made the point that what the Bible does with the figures and the stories contained in it is not altogether different than what the ancient Greeks or the ancient Romans did with their historical accounts. They very often attributed events to the divine favor or the lack thereof of the gods, or the direct involvement of the gods. And we don't throw out those stories as being completely untrue because there's a religious aspect to them. We shouldn't do it with the Bible either. Even if you want to look at the Bible and say, you know what, I don't believe, for example, that God intervened in this particular battle and gave victory to the Israelites. It doesn't mean that the Israelites didn't win a victory in that battle. And we've seen that. We've seen now archaeological sources that have confirmed elements of stories in the Bible. So even if you don't sign on to God's intervention and active role in those events, it doesn't mean those events didn't still happen largely the way that they're described. So it's just something to keep in mind with all of that. How can one use Ancestry and other sites effectively, accurately? Just look at the real sources, right? Like, don't look at somebody's family tree and use the information they put in. Look at the census records, look at the birth records, and understand that even those can sometimes be wrong. I've seen ridiculous, like I've seen a person age 3 years from one census to the next, even though 10 years passed. Obviously, one of those dates is wrong for their ages. So you have to take all of the information, kind of lay it all out in front of you for a particular person and say, okay, what does the preponderance of evidence say about the facts? What can I know with a fair degree of confidence is true about this person? It's a mystery where you're taking pieces of the puzzle and you're putting it all together and you're trying to determine what you know and what you don't know from those facts. Yeah, birth and death certificates are only as accurate as the person providing the information. So if my grandson gives the information from my birth certificate and he never met my father and never heard me talk about my father at a time when there were no birth records, he might not even know what my father's name was. And you'll often see like unknown for the father's name, or you'll see the wrong name for a father's name on a birth certificate because the people just didn't know. So you just have to take the preponderance of the evidence the best you can with all that stuff. All right, where are we at? I found a newspaper clipping from 1850. One of your West Virginia ancestors announcing as a family that they no longer supported the South and the Democrats. I was wondering if that was common. Yeah, people were pretty, I don't know about announcing it in the newspaper, but people were pretty open about their support for a particular party, right? So if you look at county histories, so I grew up in Trumbull County, Ohio. The Trumbull County history from like 1907 or whatever year it was has a lot of biographies of different families that lived in Trumbull County. And it would often say something like, politically, Mr. Hughes is a Republican and has always voted on the Republican ticket. It'll say stuff like that. Like they were very much known for their political views. And so that doesn't surprise me that someone would do that. All right. It's a little late, but would you do a reaction to a video about Gallipoli for Anzac Day? Yeah, you know, I'm sorry I missed Anzac Day because I was away while it happened and I didn't really have an opportunity because I had pre-recorded a lot of videos for the channel for while I was gone. So I didn't get to do anything for it. Just landed a new job in Uzbekistan, which is close to China. Yeah, China is in the realm of one of the potential 2027 trips that we'll be announcing. I'm working on that. So don't be surprised if it happens. And I would love to see you there if it does. Citational practices also depend on the publisher. And here I'm talking about academic presses. Yeah, going back to what we talked about earlier about how people do their citations in books. Cambridge University Press Monographs has footnotes at the bottom of each page. Yeah, that's how some people do it. I find that process exhausting personally, so I chose not to do it that way. So you think it's worse to someone to like Woodrow Wilson or Taylor Swift? Oh, Woodrow Wilson, without a doubt. I got no problem with somebody liking Taylor Swift. I think she's talented and she's popular for a reason. That's fine with me. Any recommendations for history authors or books? If you're into biographies, Ron Chernow's biographies are fantastic. Hamilton and Grant in particular. I'm told his Washington biography is also really, really good. I just haven't personally read it. What team do you fear facing the most this upcoming football season as an OSU fan? Texas. It's going to be interesting to see how Texas does. We're at Texas this year. Arch Manning, I think, probably got the butterflies out from the game last year. It's going to be interesting. Don't like to go over recent events, but 10 years from now, what current or recent event are you looking forward to go over? I'm most curious to see what our political party system looks like when Trump's no longer on the ballot. I'm really, really curious to see what the issues are and how the things that are happening now impacted where the parties ended up 10 years from now, for sure. All right. Should do a video about Cahokia. Interesting. Very cool. Would you rather be president of the Woodrow Wilson fan club or a Michigan fan? That's like asking me, would you rather have your left leg cut off or your right leg cut off? Neither is an enjoyable prospect to me, and I refuse the premise of your question. I think an accurate telling of the Western expansion is needed. Yeah, absolutely. Any thoughts about visiting New Zealand, Australia, and or the South Pacific? Yes, 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 yes. There are certain places that are at the top of my list that I desperately want to go to. Switzerland, Israel, South Africa, Thailand, China, Japan, New Zealand, Australia, and so many more. Oh my goodness. Antarctica. Oh, I need to get to Utah so I can have all 50 states. Long-term viewer here. Appreciate your candid assessments of historical videos and your honest opinions about modern political events. Love from Texas. Thank you, Eric. I appreciate that. All right, let's try and get through the last of these as best I can. What are your thoughts on the parallels between the 20s and the 1920s and the 2020s? Not sure I see a ton of parallels. Is there anything specific that you are referring to? Because I like off the top of my head, I don't think of a lot any more than a parallel with other time periods. Why do I not want to visit the UK? I literally just got back from the UK. I mean, I was there like 4 days ago, and I'm going to be there twice more this summer. So I don't need to go. I've been there several times already. Any chance of making a sports history video? Yeah, that's definitely something I would like to do more of, is sports history, even if I did it on VTH Extra. What Canadian party? I don't know anything about the Canadian parties. I couldn't even tell you the names of the Canadian parties. I barely pay attention to the political systems in my own country, let alone others. I'm sorry, I just don't know anything about them. 10 Commandments or Prince of Egypt? Prince of Egypt. Prince of Egypt is so good. My daughter and I talk about this all the time. What a really, really, really good movie Prince of Egypt was, and I wish we did more of those. Do you think we would be able to do in Iran what we did with Japan? Probably not. There's just so many differences between the two. And I don't think that we would ever have the ability to do that. Nah, I don't think so. Was the South still screwed if Anaconda Plan failed? I just don't see a scenario where the Anaconda Plan failed. The Anaconda Plan was based on the overwhelming strengths of the Union Navy in particular, and economics. And I just don't see how that would have failed. Might have taken longer in some ways, but nah. Favorite Tolkien book, movie, or character? Book, Lord of the Rings. Movie, Return of the King. And character, Gandalf. Definitely Gandalf. Your step adoptive mom passed away on April 12th. Please say a prayer. I will do that. I'm so sorry. Having lost both parents in the last couple of years, I know what you're feeling. Step, adoptive mom, doesn't matter. My grandparents were my parents, so I know how that goes. I'm really sorry that you're hurting right now. That's hard. All right. I have yet to be to the U.S. Air Force Museum in Ohio, and I desperately need to get down there to Dayton to get to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and see that. In Ohio for 3 or 4 days. Wow. It's so spread out, right? So you're not going to be real far from Cincinnati, so you could go down to in that area. You have Grant's birthplace. You have the burial place of William Henry Harrison and his son John Scott Harrison, just to name a few things that are in that area. If you only say one sentence to one person in history, who would it be and what would you say? P.S. You helped me through my first deployment. Well, thank you for your service, and I hope your deployment's going well. One sentence to one person in history. And I'll throw out Jesus because I can talk to him, separate thing. So historically speaking, okay. I would say to Abraham Lincoln, don't pick Johnson. There you go. Or better yet, don't go to the theater tonight. There you go. Oh, somebody just said it right as I did. Daniel said, don't go to Ford's Theater. There you go. That's even better. Pineapple belongs on pizza. I will die on that hill. Pineapple, ham, and jalapenos. That's disgusting, and you should be banned from my channel. Just kidding. Out of curiosity, would you consider reacting to Epic History's other Nelson's battles? Yes. For sure will. Love your setup. What's your camera? All right, so right now it's not great because of the camera issues I had at the beginning of the stream. So the lighting's not perfect. I'm gonna have to fix that for the next stream. But so I've got my two lights up here. And then normally the background's blurred, and I need to finish putting some more stuff on these shelves and hang something on the wall right there. But yeah, it's coming together pretty good. Hey, Malik, long time no see. Thank you for that. At the midterms for today, who wins the Senate? 50-50 is, I think, a solid guess. I'm not sold on the Republicans losing the Senate yet. They're definitely going to lose the House. Any president in our history that doesn't get enough credit for what they were able to accomplish in their time serving? Grant. I think Grant did a lot for civil rights that unfortunately got overshadowed by a lot of other things. Do I still follow West Brom avidly? I absolutely do. Saved from relegation, James Morrison should 100% get the job permanently for next year. Support Roma, very cool. I got my son a Roma jersey when I was there a couple years ago. Does Vance look similar to Grant? Maybe a little bit. Vance, I found out, was my cousin. He's like my third or fourth cousin, something like that. So that's crazy. Have you ever checked out Fire of Learning? Yeah, I think I've reacted to a couple of their videos, actually. Do I think people take freedom of speech too far? Always. But that's the risk that you take with freedom of speech, right? Is freedom of speech by its nature means that people are going to push it. They're going to say extreme things. And that's the reality of having it. Favorite protest song. All right, gonna admit something here. Don't really know much in the way of the protest songs. It's not an era that I've studied a lot, and it definitely had an impact. I mean, no doubt. I mean, music and art absolutely have a huge impact on the culture, on the politics of the day. On me personally, obviously not, but definitely for sure it does. How do I see the 2030 census changing elections? Well, every census changes elections. The electorate's going to continue to shift south and west, and that's going to impact the north and east as it has been. What's the weirdest piece of trivia that is completely useless and then 99% of people don't know or wouldn't care about? Oh gosh. there's a bunch that I've used over time. Um, yeah. It's the one that I always share about me personally, which is that my mom's fourth great grandfather was hanged during the American Revolution uh, after being captured by my dad's fourth great grandfather. Yeah. So nobody cares about that, but that's a really, really weird thing that happened, that two people who met in high school in Northeast Ohio had ancestors who came from the same part of North Carolina, and that one captured and hanged the other one. So yeah. Heard of Baxter Springs massacre? Oh yeah, you know what? I was just talking to somebody about this the other day. Quantrill, who's from Ohio, and Major Henry Curtis had Ohio ties, yeah. And Lieutenant Pond earned the Medal of Honor, 225 characters. Yeah, not something I know enough about, but definitely a topic that I should talk about at some point on the channel. Who are some of my personal heroes, favorite historical figures, but some folks that you respect highly? Yeah, I mean, I have people in my own life that I respect highly. Dave Dennis would be one that comes to mind. He was my pastor when I was in Pennsylvania. I was an associate pastor at a church. He was the senior pastor. We met so 2001, I was 23 and he was like 42. And we've known each other ever since. And even though we live several hours apart, we still talk often. We still get together when we can. And there's very few people in this world I respect as much as him. I have a ton of respect for Martin Sheen, who I met recently in the last couple of years. Don't know well, but is truly the kindest person I've ever met in my entire life. And I believe, even though I don't share his politics in many ways, I respect his politics to an unbelievable degree, because I believe there's a quote in the movie Hacksaw Ridge where Desmond Doss's commanding officer says to him that while some of the other men don't share Doss's beliefs, he said they believe so much in how much you believe it. And that, I think, reflects how I feel about Martin Sheen. I don't share some of his beliefs, but I absolutely believe that he is 100% sincere in his beliefs. I think he's very consistent in his beliefs across the board. And I think he lives out his faith in a way that not nearly enough Christians do. And so I respect that a lot. My friend JD, I have a ton of respect for him. I look up to him a lot. Daryl Scott, who is the father of Rachel Scott, who was killed at Columbine, is one of my absolute favorite people in the world, and has done so much incredible good from one of the most unimaginable things that could happen to a dad, and having his daughter murdered and then have it plastered all over national TV, and then live in the aftermath of that, and to make something beautiful come out of this, the worst thing that ever happened to his family. It's just, I have so much respect for that. And you know, to speak a little bit more about what I said about Martin Sheen, this is what I always say, and I wish more people could feel this way. I don't expect everyone to believe the way I do. What I do expect is that you know what you believe and why you believe it, instead of just saying, well, it's what my family believes, so it's what I believe. You know, if you have a particular set of political beliefs, be willing to back it up. Be willing to know why you believe that and to take a stand for it. I get people who criticize me, for example. Like, I've had people say that I'm a terrible father because my daughter doesn't share my politics. And I completely disagree with that. My daughter is incredibly intelligent. She cares about what's happening in the world. She is informed. She studies it. She learns about it. She pays attention. and she has come to a different conclusion on some things than me. There are things that she and I agree on, and that's all I can ask for, is that my daughter thinks for herself, that she studies the issues, and that she forms her own conclusions. And I fully support her, even if she doesn't see the world the way I do. I wish more people could do that. Yeah, some kids are more liberal than their parents. Not all. I think my eldest son is probably more conservative than I am. There's a big gender divide right now among their generation, and my son and my daughter, I think, are very polar opposites when it comes to their politics, and I respect them both. Favorite history video game: Grand Tactician Civil War. Definitely love that one. Huge fan from Toronto. Canadians love the channel. Thank you. Thoughts on the trailer to the new George Washington movie? I mentioned at the top of this stream that I know my friend Dr. Jared Frederick was not a huge fan of it, but I'm withholding judgment on the movie as a whole. I'm curious to see how a look at that time period goes. All right, we're going to try to wrap this up in the next few minutes, so I want to get to the last of these super chats. When am I coming to Turkey? Yes, that's another one that's high on the list of places I want to go to. Thank you for mentioning that. I need to get to Turkey. Only thing we have to fear is fear itself. FDR, greatest line ever said by a U.S. president. I don't think I agree with that, but I respect your views on that. It's a great line. I just don't think it's the greatest. Hey, got to ask a very important question here. What is your favorite Star Wars movie and character? Would I be a Jedi or Sith? Jedi all the way. 100% Jedi. Favorite characters, Han Solo. Love Harrison Ford. Love Han Solo. Favorite Star Wars movie? It's got to be the original, A New Hope, for me. But a close second would be Rogue One. Rogue One was phenomenal. Definitely the best of the non-original trilogy. Rogue One's so good. Okay. Thoughts on John Paul Jones, father of our Navy? Cool character. Great story. Underrated. The perfect kind of American hero story, even though he wasn't born here. Definitely an American legend for sure. Revenge of the Sith is solid. I'm a big fan of Revenge of the Sith as well. Am I a Messi guy or Ronaldo? Messi all the way. And I believed that long before Messi came to America. Pound for pound, strongest military in the 19th century. Germany. Germany in the 19th century. It's Germany in 1870. If you come to South Africa, check out Kruger National Park. Very cool. I definitely would want to see the wildlife if I come there. Do I know about Maury Ridge Road in Frenchville, PA? No, but it certainly could be connected because my Mowers came from Pennsylvania. They went from Pennsylvania to Virginia to Kentucky, but a branch of them stayed in PA and became Maoris as well. Who wins a fight, Theodore Roosevelt or James Garfield? Garfield. Roosevelt was tough, but he was small compared to Garfield. Garfield was a big dude. He would have taken Roosevelt with no problem. Thank you for allowing me to have a window into your beliefs, as well as an opportunity to communicate with others. I'm so glad you feel that way. One of my favorite parts, I say it all the time, is this community. And that's one of the reasons I do so many group tours now. The group tours is a chance for us to spend time together and get to know one another and become friends. And I know not everybody can afford the group tours, and that's why I'm trying to do more of like the Shiloh tour, where it's like a 2-day thing and it doesn't cost much and it's close to home for many people. And I try to do meetups just so we can hang out for a couple of hours, because I love building this community for sure. Do you think the far Western theater of the American Civil War is underrated? Yeah. I don't know how much of a huge impact it had on the result, but it doesn't get talked about nearly enough. I don't know about the idea that all sides and parts of history should be equally talked about, because I think it's perfectly fair and reasonable that the trans Mississippi theater is talked about less than the Eastern theater and the Western theater, because it didn't have as great an impact as those other theaters did. Doesn't mean we shouldn't talk about it, but I wouldn't say equally. Do I know the story of Valor Road in Winnipeg? That's not the only road where there were two um, Victoria Cross recipients living on the same road, is it? Because if it's not, then I don't know. But I do remember reading about that somewhere. I just don't remember where it was that happened, or that is a thing. Three. There are three. Is that the right place? Am I thinking of the right thing? All right. Who's gonna tell Ninja Warrior? All right. There's two aspects to this. One, I don't have a wife. I've been divorced for 2 years. Number two, even though my ex-wife is Hungarian, she's never been there, and probably knows less about Hungary than I do. And I'm not insulting her. I'm just saying she doesn't know a lot about Hungary. So none of that. I mean, I wouldn't ask her because she wouldn't know anything in the first place, honestly. Otherwise, I would. If I thought she knew a lot about it, I would ask her. Okay, and last super chat: the most hated athlete of all time and why? Team sport. Most hated athlete. Well, at this point, it's got to be O.J. Simpson, right? Because he murdered his wife, or ex-wife. Team sport. Yeah, I mean, so O.J. Simpson. Beyond that, I don't know. Oh, somebody with the username Woodrow Wilson just said hi to me. Would I vote for Vivek for governor? Yeah, I would. I haven't started paying attention yet because we're far from that. But when it gets time for that, I'll start paying attention to the issues and decide. Amy Acton, who's the likely Democrat nominee, is from here. She's from Liberty, which is a few miles away from me. So she's local. But all right, we're going to wrap it up right there. Thank you guys so much. I apologize if I didn't get to your question. I had to get to all the super chats, but I tried to get to some of the other questions as well. But if you missed any of the chat, we covered a lot of the questions you guys were asking were answered earlier in the stream. So the stream will be live and continue to be live. You can go back and watch whatever you missed early on so you can check it out. So thanks a lot. And we'll be live streaming a lot more often now that I'm back and I'm not traveling for the next couple of months and the book's done. So take care, everybody.